All right, here we are. Another Speak from the Soul. Where's Trevor? Trevor came up with the name Speak from the Soul. That's what this is, Matt. Speak from the Soul. It's the whole goal here is to bring somebody in that I know, obviously, or that wants to reach out. So anybody that listens to this wants to reach out and has a story to tell. This one is another one. Last week we had a guy that I grew up with. This one I grew up with even closer. This dude and I go back since we're 7 years old.
Five. Well,
yeah.
I was younger than you. You're the old guy.
Yeah. He was a year younger than me, but literally my backyard butted up to his. Matt Lytle, let's give it up for him. Matt Lytle, Matthew Lytle. Been a friend of mine for 40 plus years, and man, he's got an awesome story to tell. The whole goal here is to talk about some pain and talk about the purpose in that pain and where you got. And Matt, like just to give you guys an overview, Matt was an amazing baseball player, an amazing athlete. I'll give you a little story. Like we knew very young there were acorns in Wyomissing Hills, okay? And when we were kids, smart kids have acorn battles. And I was always wanting to be on Matt's team, or I was going to chase him and beat him because he could throw an acorn faster than anybody in the world and bean it off your head and you would bleed. It led to a lot of probably issues for Matt when he would throw something because you always knew. And a snowball fight, throwing acorns. Matt had an arm from the time he was born, and great baseball player, football player. I got the opportunity and the honor to play football with him. Some days when it was cold, it wasn't an honor because he would mess with everybody and whip a ball at you 500 miles an hour into your cold hands. But we'll get to all that. But Matt's a great athlete, but also he's been through it. Now he's a dad. He's an executive in a business. I think you have some of your own things going on the side. You have some land right next door to us at the farm. Just an all-around solid human, solid person that his work ethic stands out to me. And with our guys, that's important that they see that the work is what got it done. And you hear me say all the time, Jeff and I used to talk about this, hard work beats talent every day. But Matt had a God-given talent. He was using that left arm that he was supposed to use, but he also worked his ass off to get everything he had. So let's give it up for Matt and let's get him started. Talk about the early days of sports or whatever you want to talk about, man.
First off, I want to thank you guys for having me here. I'm honored and blessed. Every day that we have on this earth is a blessing. Kevin, thanks for having me. It was quite an experience growing up with Kevin, being younger than he was and whatnot. And thank goodness I did have the arm that I had. That when he pissed me off or whatnot, I would get him with snowballs, acorns, etc. Some familiar faces out here tonight, so thanks for coming and listening. This isn't about. It's not just about my successes. This is in life. You're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot of times. You're going to fail forward in life. My father, I'll tell you early on, talk about some successes and failures. Early on, when I was younger, I had a dad who pushed me like no other. He was strict. He was hard on me, but he made me better. My dad was a guy who, at age 5, his father left him, so he ended up raising his 2 younger brothers and sister. So he knew what it was like to not have a father. And I was fortunate enough to be raised in his house. And in sports, he pushed me. A lot of people thought that my dad was over the top with, how hard he pushed me. And, what I can equate that to is I've got 5 kids of my own. And if I pushed my kids, a couple of them, if I pushed them as hard as my dad pushed me back then, they would resent me. They'd hate me. In order to have that relentless pursuit of greatness and to be pushed, you've got to accept it. You've got to want to be great at whatever that is that you want to do. We all have passions. We all have talents. Every one of us in this room, we all have talents. You just have to find that talent, harness it, and focus on that talent and put it to work, right? And the more and more I grew and accepted the work and pushed by my dad. I mean, I can tell you, Kevin, freshman, sophomore year, I went to camp after camp after camp with football. Football I was really passionate about because football was exciting.
Hang on a minute. I want to go to something important. So Matt was a professional quarterback, NFL. But growing up, mites and midgets football, we played together. What position did you play? You were on the line, dude.
No,
I
was a running back.
Were you?
I was
really?
Remember, it was Eisenhower's the quarterback, and I was the running back.
Okay.
And then we flip-flopped in 7th grade.
Okay. So, like, Matt, nobody – and I can remember, like, I feel like I remember a time where your dad finally said to somebody, like, hey, like, he's got a killer arm. Maybe you need to try him here. And then when we figured that piece out, it was like, whoa, like, okay. And that's where dad's push in certain ways was awesome because he didn't, like, he wasn't the dad, I'm making this point because a dad that sees your arm when we're 7, 8 years old, your dad knew your arm your whole life.
Yeah.
But didn't go to football practices and be like, hey, he's a quarterback, he's this. He wanted you to just go and work and play football and grind out and do what you had and go to practice and be a kid and not have that crazy pressure as a kid. You just were there, and then junior high school comes around and you start playing quarterback.
That's kind of where he backed off. Junior high.
Okay.
I don't want to say backed off coaching me because at home it was constant, right? At home.
Yeah.
But junior high he wasn't the coach, and it was he stepped away, and from there I think it was just the coaches could see the talent and whatnot. But again, talent aside, it wasn't. You got to love what you're doing, right? You got to love what you're doing. I was living a dream, right? I was fortunate enough to play in the NFL. I was living a dream. I did it for 3-4 years, but it was cutthroat.
Yeah. Take us through getting that. So you junior high, you start throwing the ball like, I'm a year ahead of you or 2 years ahead of you.
You were 2 years
ahead of you. So I got to watch you as a freshman and as a sophomore play, and then I moved on. But everybody knew Matt was going to be great, and there's an air of pressure to that, right? Especially when you have a dad, and he's right. Like, I remember being scared of his dad, as a kid. Now I was a really good, quiet angel kid, so I had,
Sure.
I had, but he was a guy that I didn't mess with. I knew that there was a boundary that I didn't cross with Marsh, and he was hard on him and pushed him very hard. But that piece of everybody knowing that Matt's gonna be a pro at something, because at that time Matt was a beast baseball player too. You could hit the ball a mile. You could throw the ball 90-some miles an hour in high school. Like, talk about that pressure of being somebody that everybody's looking at, that in high school scouts are coming to baseball games, all of them. That football is what you love, and you when you 10th grade you hit the ground running and you're starting, and the work a quarterback has to do with pressure. Like, I want you to talk about the pressure in high school with that.
Well, I'll tell you guys this. One of the things, before I talk about the pressure, one of the things that I worked on in college was public speaking, because the irony there is I'd play at University of Pittsburgh or in the NFL. I'm out and there's 100,000 people in the stands and whatnot, and you got all these eyes on you. Pressure at the highest it can be. So college, I took a step back and getting in front of it didn't mind. I loved the pressure in baseball and football. It was just people watching, right? Being in that limelight, pitching in baseball. The game started and stopped with the pitcher. So I got great satisfaction out of, I don't know what the term is for it, but
you were the nucleus.
I don't want to say being in the limelight, but I got so much gravity and I got so excited about being in that limelight and having the pressure on me. The more pressure that was on me, the better I did, I think. So baseball in high school, my junior, senior year, there were 20 plus scouts behind the plate, with guns, all holding guns up when I'm throwing. And it's interesting because my junior year was, like I said, 20 plus scouts. And then my senior year in baseball, and we went to state finals my junior year, and we lost in the state finals. I remember that vividly. But then my senior year, I signed a letter of intent for a scholarship to Pitt, and that was in February. Well, baseball season didn't start until we started. I mean, I lie. Baseball season for me started in like December, where I'd start pitching, batting, and whatnot. Because guys, I'll go back to it again. Whatever you guys want to do and be great at, you got to have that relentless pursuit of greatness, perfection. It's even today in corporate world. I try to do people that are same level as me or same position. I'm always asking myself, what can I do that they're not doing? What can I do above and beyond the person that's in the same role as I am, right? And you got to outwork them. You got to outwork them. And Kevin and I were talking a little bit earlier, and I talk about work ethic. Playing in the NFL, I was a hero, right? I was at the top of my game, and I was a hero. But that switch was flipped in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
I was fired multiple times by teams, cut, you name it. I've been fired in corporate America, you name it. You're going to get kicked in the mouth. You got to just get back up and go on to the next. You got to keep fighting, keep battling in life. In the NFL, right, I said it's very cutthroat. Practice, you're walking on eggshells.
Talk about that. What do you mean eggshells by that? Like,
you're walking on eggshells. I wasn't drafted in the first round in the NFL. I was a free agent signing out of Pitt, and every practice, when you're practicing, the ball doesn't hit the ground. That's a no-no. So when I throw a pass to the receiver, the ball doesn't hit the ground. Same way you pitch it to the running back, doesn't hit the ground. Or you throw a little swing route to the running back. There's no incompletions in practice. Practice is more stringent and a whole lot harder than games. You guys, I know of everybody out here is probably watching an NFL game, and it's a lot of fun, all the limelight and everything else. But coaching and coaches in the NFL, they make practice so hard and fast-paced that when a game comes, everything slows down. So it's a lot easier come game time. But what I was saying going back to the NFL with being cutthroat is I played 3-4 years, and my last year and I'll tell you a story. I'll get into it a little bit about the Ravens were the last team I was with. They cut me after the third preseason game, and I didn't have any current film. So I knew my career in the NFL was over, because when you don't have any current film, because I didn't play any preseason games, another team wasn't going to pick me up, because it's like, what have you done for me lately? It's like they want it present. What's this guy done, right? They're not going to live off his laurels, what he did last year or the year before, because I wasn't a first-round draft pick, right? I didn't have the previous team give me $2 million as a signing bonus. So they cut me, and I kind of knew my career was over. So when I'm saying going from a hero to zero, when you're an NFL quarterback, you're the hero, and then you get cut and you're not in the league, you're a zero, right? I become just and I say that, it's no disrespect or anything, but I become the regular society member. I'm a father. I'm a father of 5 now, and I'm last. In the NFL, I was first. I always, and being a little selfish, right? It was all about me, and I consider myself pretty humble. Like, if most people that know me, I'll give them the shirt off my back. I'll do whatever for you. There's some people that didn't know me that thought I was arrogant and whatnot. But in order to be successful, you got to have a little bit of You got to have a little bit,
especially at that level.
Confidence.
Yes.
There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and I'm not a fan at all of arrogance. And I've met a lot.
Well, especially NFL players, yes. I'm sure.
Yes.
Not all of us know NFL players like you do, so you have it on a much bigger level. But I know that the pro players that I have been around at times, it's incredible cockiness.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I've gotten to be around pro motocrossers, and that you said that line is so, like, they have to be on the line of cocky.
You have to.
Because they have to have this belief in themselves that they're the greatest. And if you're standing out there, the nucleus of a football team, the center of attention on a football team, you got to be the most confident guy in the field. You got to be the one telling everybody what's going on.
Everybody's looking to you.
Right.
And if you don't have that confidence, that strong confidence, your team's not going to have it.
That's right.
So going back to hero to zero, right? I was telling you about 5 kids. In the NFL, I was the hero, and 5 kids now. I consider myself kind of the zero, right? All I'm doing is serving. And I thought about this serving others, right? I think it's the best thing we can do in life. And this morning I was talking to my wife, and reading scripture, and in Mark 10, it talks, and I have it. If you don't mind, guys, I'll quick pull it up. My wife is my rock, I'll tell you that. Without her, she's grounded me. So even underline, but among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you guys? To me, it means here I am, hero to zero, right? But more importantly, I'm serving. I'm serving my children. I'm serving my work. I'm serving the community. Everyone's life is important. And I take it to the extreme when I walk into the hospital. Like, I work in hospitals and whatnot. Right now I work for a robotics company. And when I'm in the hospital, that janitor in the hospital, I get along with so well. And that janitor and I are tight because I treat him like an equal. I don't care if he's the janitor or the CEO. To me, they're the same. Yeah. We're all individuals, right? It's those people. Remember, I just talked about arrogance. I hate arrogance. The people with that arrogance will walk right by that janitor and not even say anything. So when I say hero to zero, it's important because now I am the zero, but I'm serving others. And
that had to take some time to get used to. You go from being, and that's what we talked about back there. Matt, you guys might not remember because you were a little older, but Matt was looked at as the guy from the time he was in high school. In the school, you ran, like I came and watched you play a lot when you were a senior. Matt was amazing on the field, amazing on the baseball field. So that creates this. Everybody's watching you. Everybody's got eyes on you. And what I'm trying to tie this so that in this room we have something to talk about with relation. We have this piece of us that becomes extremely selfish. Okay, me in the room as using drugs and being wrong, and the thing. You and I went completely different ways. Matt's probably never done a drug in his life that I know of. You and I never got high together. I don't even know that maybe in high school we drank a little bit together, or I drank and you watched me make an idiot of myself. But, that wasn't my time. I was this late bloomer guy. But Matt went a direction of sports, which I was really thankful for to have, by the way. Keep your kids involved in something, because sports for me is what kept me from really dealing with what I had inside with my pain as a kid. So it allowed me to channel a lot of my aggression and a lot of my things. But, that selfish piece came out of me when I started causing real trouble, and all eyes were on me, and all pressure was on me to do the right thing and be this person. And I had all these new pressures of, okay, he got locked up and he's in trouble for doing this, or he's this guy, or he has this person watching him, or this family's talking about him, he's selling drugs, he's doing this, he's doing that, right? So that became this selfish thing for me where I had attention. I had attention differently than I ever had. People were talking about me, you know what I mean? People talked about you your whole life, most of your life, because of your arm and because of your talent on a field, you know what I mean? People didn't talk about me like that. They talk about me because I could make you laugh when we were kids, right? I could make you laugh and I could do all those things, but it was an attention thing. And all of us in this room start to feel attention for something. We get this attention, and then we get this self-absorbed energy that is about us. And for us in here, that turns so toxic and unhealthy that it's hard for us when new guys get here, it's hard for them to even discuss someone else. Every conversation turns back to them. You know those people. Yep. You're talking in a conversation and, well, me. And that's like an underlying thing. So, like, the level of selfish you could get in being an athlete like you are with the one percenters in the world of NFL. And I mean, Matt was drafted, right? You were drafted by the Braves or the Mets. The Mets.
Yeah.
Yep. And didn't go play. I'd like to talk about that then. But, like, you guys got to grasp that, like, how selfish he was able to be to turn that off. You know, you're playing in the NFL, in Europe, right? You played in Europe.
Yep.
You played in the Canadian League.
Yep.
You had some success in that. Didn't you with Europe? You won
We won the World Bowl.
Yeah, Rhine.
Rhine Fire. We
yep.
won the World Bowl in 2000, and we won the Grey Cup. I was only in Canada for a half season, but the team I was on, I was fortunate enough we won the Grey Cup. So got an NFL Europe ring, a Grey Cup ring. I'm just missing the Super Bowl ring. I don't think that'll ever come. I'd probably been the only person in the world to have NFL Grey Cup and NFL Europe, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. So it's important that we recognize, like, there's discipline to serve in everything we do, because everything can grab a hold of you to be selfish. Everything in this world that we have around us gives us an opportunity to be completely self-absorbed. And in today's world, it's like evident, like with this thing. There we go. You know, with this thing, the self-absorption that happens with kids and the opportunity to do that. And you had that in a high level. So I never once, anybody that would talk, Matt Lytle's cocky, I'm like, well, you don't know him. I grew up with him, smacking him around, you know what I mean? And let's get something straight, just so everybody does. I smacked Matt Lytle around a lot, okay? And he got bigger than me, and he just always remembered, like, the big brother thing where he never pushed me like that, right, Chris? Like, it was just, I always had friends behind me that would take care of me, like Chris over there.
It's weird, like, when I got to sophomore year and junior year, I started getting bigger and taller and stronger. Yeah. And then Kevin stopped, like, beating on me. I wonder why.
We had classes together that were just we were a lot of fun with each other. But that pressure, okay, so you're through high school, talk about college ball. Like, talk about playing college football, because there's a kid out there right now that's here to hear you. He's a great football player, and like, that level to get there, like, the commitment. Now my kids, one of my youngest, my middle son Tanner, he wants to play soccer. He thinks. Okay. What's the commitment level to get to college, dude? That I mean, you went to a heck of a college.
If we're gonna talk about college, there's a lot of different levels at college. There's Division III. There's community college, there's Division II, there's Division I. Division I, you're at the highest level, and I was fortunate, got a full scholarship to play ball, but it's a job, right? It's a job. I used college as a vehicle to get my education, right? It was important to my parents. I had a choice between football and baseball. Baseball, I could have went right out of high school with the Mets, but I wouldn't have had my degree. I chose Pitt, number one, because football was exciting, but it was also my parents pushed me education. In terms of commitment in Division I, I mean, it's a job, and you have to, again, you got to be relentless at whatever you do. And if you're not relentless at that Division I level, you're going to fall behind. You'll fall behind, and before you know it, you're like, what just happened, right? Your 4 years of college is over, and you didn't even get to play, things like that. And I saw it. I saw it happen with a lot of guys on the team. I saw guys get kicked out of school doing drugs. I've saw guys, I mean, I can go all the way up into the NFL level. I have, in my office at home, I have my first NFL team was the Carolina Panthers. Reggie White was actually in that picture. There were a lot of, Muhsin Muhammad. I'm trying to name some of the stars you guys would know. Steve Berline was the starting quarterback that year with me. These are some older names. Kevin Green was on that team too. But when I look at that picture, there's 4 or 5 guys that are no longer here with us on this earth. Kevin Green being one of them who's passed. Reggie passed. one of my close friends that I grew close with, his name was Jeff Lewis. And remember I told you guys about Hero to Zero, and I keep, kind of repetitive theme, but Jeff was a second-round draft pick. He was from Arizona, second-round draft pick for the Denver Broncos, quarterback. Jeff and I kind of hit it off. He took me under his wing. They gave him a lot of money in Carolina, and Jeff quickly left the league after playing for Denver for a couple years, then was traded, or he signed with Carolina. He was in Carolina for a couple years and never really did anything in the NFL. I shouldn't say that. That's probably wrong to say, because anytime you make it to the NFL, it's an accomplishment.
No, but I understand what you're saying.
He took his life. Jeff took his life. Very unfortunate, but could not handle the pressure, right, of being that guy way up here and then getting down to just being that everyday guy. Just couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle the pressure. Couldn't handle the stress, and didn't talk to people. Didn't have a network to talk to people to, tell them, reach out and understand what he was really going through. And it's hard.
Wow.
There's a lot of NFL players that end up that way, that burn all their money and end up doing drugs and are on the street. It's sad.
So you go through college and like was the commitment every day once you got to your senior year in high school and to get through college, where it was an everyday work ethic, like every single day, as far as training, throwing, all that stuff? Was it an everyday thing for you?
It was eat, sleep, and drink.
Football. Eat,
Sleep, and drink. Well, I say football, yeah, but you had your education too. You had to go to classes. I mean, you had to keep your grades up, or if you're not keeping your grades up, you're getting counseling and help from our teachers or our Pitt football support team in education. So we're getting help that way. But it's 5 o'clock in the morning, right? It's 5 o'clock in the morning. You're starting and going to study halls at 8, 9, 10 o'clock. Going to sleep at depends on the day, right? Going to sleep at 8, going to sleep at 10, or maybe going to sleep at 2, or
when was practice in between there? So you're at class. What time was practice in college?
It depends on if you're in spring training, or you're in training camp in the summer, or you're in the season. It changed. Obviously, the closer you got to the season, we were doing 2 and 3 a days. Yeah. So we have 3 practices a day heading up into the season. Spring practice. We had, I remember spring practice, we were up at the Cost Center, and that was just a time to get you conditioned. They tried to see how many people they could get to puke, right? Because guys, some guys weren't taking it serious, and were out the night before boozing and drinking and smelling. You could tell coming to work out in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning doing bear crawls, and they smell like alcohol or smell like, other substances. And when you're working out with those guys, or you're in the huddle and you smell that, it makes you want to throw up. So you learn quick. You learn quick on how to train your body and how to keep up, and what was best for your body, what meals to eat, what food to eat to keep you at your peak. But it was consistent, guys. It's a job in college. Whatever sport you're playing, it's a job. So those athletes in Division I have the utmost respect for them, because they work hard, right? They are talented in their whatever sport they're playing.
Was it a job your senior year? Like, I want this to be heard by my son and me. Was it a job in 11th grade? Because in 10th grade it wasn't a job for you. Like, we were having some fun. You were on a successful team.
Best time of my life.
10th grade.
No, best time of my life. High school.
Okay. Yeah.
High school was the best time of my life, because I was living at home.
Yep.
I had food on the plate, right?
Yeah.
I had dinner, food on the plate. I didn't have to worry about where the next meal was coming from.
Right.
And it was nice, a warm bed to sleep in.
But when did the switch happen, where it went from a little bit of work to, all right, I got to really work? Your senior year?
Oh, no. I put the pressure on myself my senior year, because I wanted to get to Division I. So my senior year might have been a little bit different than others,
right,
in terms of work ethic. But the switch completely changes from high school to college.
Okay.
In high school, one of the biggest changes is the commitment, the education piece too when you're going to college, and your time commitment, right? Your time commitment and your schedule completely changes because you're on a strict schedule in college. But the game changes big time in terms of speed.
Yeah.
The speed of the game is like so. For example, and Kevin wasn't this guy in high school where he wasn't the fastest guy on the field, but there's usually in high school you got one guy that you can say he's got a different engine, different motor. He's kind of set apart from the other 10 guys. Well, that person now take 10 more from other high schools and you put them all out on the field. So in college, in Division I, all 11 can run. It's the speed of the game. They're faster. Now, offensive linemen, they're the slowest group out there, but there's some dancing bears, as offensive linemen that are running 4.9 40s, 5.0 40s. I could, we talk about Ross Tucker, who went to Wyomissing. Ross, he was a dancing bear, smart dancing bear, right? He had good feet.
Yep.
So might not be the fastest from A to Z in a straight line, but those offensive linemen are really quick with their feet. Because think about it now in the NFL, defensive ends are running 4.6s at 6'4", 270 pounds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
crazy. Yeah, so you get through college. So when does I want to talk about that senior year of college, wondering that, again, I'm talking about pressures, wondering, okay, am I going to get drafted? Am I not going to get drafted? Like, talk about that a little bit as far from a standpoint of pressure. Like, what did you know that you were going to get a job? Did you not know? Like, what were your plan? Did you have a plan B of like, okay, if I don't get drafted, could I go back to baseball? Could you talk to the Mets? Could you talk to somebody? Like, talk about that time, man.
It's funny that you say that because I will give you this. I'll tell you the whole story with baseball. There was a story to the story after I was cut by the Ravens in the NFL. But going back to baseball, you're saying your
senior year of Pitt, like every D1 player, their senior year wants to know if they're going to get drafted or if they're not going to get drafted. Were you going to have a job? You go to college, you go get a degree, you're going to go work in your degree. You're going to go take your exam for the bar. You're going to go be a lawyer. Your whole thing was the education was second, right? But do you know in your senior year that you're going to get drafted or not?
I can tell you this. You guys all know college now, right? There's like a portal. You guys heard of the portal? Where kids in college, if they're not playing or something's not right with a coach, they're not, they're just not, there might be a guy that's playing in front of them. The starting quarterback is playing. Well, the backup quarterback's just as good, but he's not playing. There's a portal now that they can get into and transfer right away to another school. When I was in college, there was no portal. What I can tell you is if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would have definitely jumped in the portal at Pitt and went somewhere else.
Really?
Why? Yeah. At Pitt, we got beat up. We didn't win a ton of games.
Right.
It was tough. I mean, Pitt. We were blue collar, hard nosed guys that just battled, and we battled a lot of great teams. Back then it was the Big East, so it was Syracuse, it was Miami, it was Virginia Tech, Boston College, Temple, Rutgers. So that was the Big East, and we played a lot of great teams and players. But going back to your question,
did you know?
Did I know I was going to be drafted? I didn't know. And I could tell you this. I was brought into Pitt by Johnny Majors, who coached national title at Pitt in '76, and he was also the late Johnny Majors. He was also a coach at Tennessee, University of Tennessee. Great coach, great recruiter. I love the guy to death. The two guys on staff that recruited me to Pitt were Matt Cavanaugh, who's a former NFL quarterback. Matt Cavanaugh, I don't know, some of you guys who are older in the room would remember Matt. He played on like he played with the Eagles, any Eagles fans. So Matt Cavanaugh was on staff, and then Ken Karcher. They were both former NFL players at quarterback. That's why I went to Pitt, because I was going to learn from the best, right? So that was Pitt. That's why I went there. My sophomore year, Johnny Major stepped down and we got a new coach. So my sophomore year, I was the starter. My junior year, new head coach came in, Walt Harris, and the guy I started over as a sophomore ended up starting over me when I was a junior, and this guy was a senior. So I went from being the starter over this kid as a sophomore to sitting my junior year. So when I said I would have went in the portal, 100%.
Yeah.
My junior year, I became the backup, and I hated football. Why did I hate football? Because of the coach, right? And I was immature. I wasn't being the best teammate I could be because I wanted to play. I was being selfish, and I was being, immature. And I think that ultimately cost me millions of dollars. And why I say that, guys, is my sophomore year I started. My junior year I didn't at Pitt. My senior year I did, right? I can tell you my senior year, my greatest compliment was from Joe Paterno when we played Pitt-Penn State. And Joe Paterno said, Matt, I don't know how we let you get away from us. And to me, I took that as recruiting.
Yeah.
They were the number one defense in the nation in 1998, my senior year, and they were only missing a quarterback. Their offense was down a little bit. I think they went – number one, I could rattle off some NFL players on that defense. They had like 4 or 5 first-round draft picks on that defense.
Yeah. Why wasn't there a look to Penn State or a look to back then like a Miami? Like why didn't you consider? I know you did dealings with them, didn't you? Like why didn't you consider a place like Penn State?
I did. Back then, you got to remember. Back then, there wasn't social media. There wasn't any of that. The only way people knew about me and saw my film was my dad sending film to colleges.
Right.
My dad put together, the VHS film that he sent those out. So that's how they knew about me. And not only that, is me going to camps. That was another reason I went to so many camps in high school. But Penn State, there was a quarterback. His name's going to slip my mind. He, Mike. Anyway, he was from State College. And I won't get into it, but I was the B recruit for Penn State. They had a guy already, Mike McQueary. Mike.
Okay.
Mike's a great guy, redhead, big, tall redhead. Anyway, Mike, they had already committed to Penn State, and he was their A guy. I was their B recruit. So I'm like, I'm not your guy. I'm not your A guy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Penn State. And I'm in your backyard. And here, Kerry Collins, another guy from Berks County, went to Wilson. He went to Penn State. So I was a little upset. But going back to Pitt, and this story is, I would have definitely went in the portal, and it cost me millions of dollars based off of my junior season. Because if I started my sophomore year, started my junior year, and then my senior year, I had 3 years of playing experience and whatnot. Right. That junior year really hurt me because I was projected to being drafted. And this goes back to your question, did I know I was going to be drafted? I thought I was going to be drafted. One of the biggest I can remember it like it was yesterday. My dad and I sat in his house downstairs, big screen TV, phone right by my side, and we're watching the draft. And first round goes by. I see all the quarterbacks taken. And let me take a step back. Here's one thing that kind of hurt me. They have NFL combines, right?
Yep.
The combine's usually in like February. Draft's in April. I wasn't invited to the combine. Your coaches in college kind of push, you say, hey, this guy needs to go to the combine, or supports you going to the combine.
Yeah.
I didn't go to the combine. If I would have went to the combine, I would have been competing with Donovan McNabb, Dante Culpepper, Achilles Smith, Cade McNown. Those are some quarterbacks to name that were drafted in the top 10 picks. Cade McNown, as a matter of fact, he was a left-handed quarterback like me. He was 2 or 3 inches shorter than me. I played with his tight end in NFL Europe. And hopefully Cade's not watching this or hearing me say this.
No, I doubt it.
But what I can tell you is his tight end said, Matt, I cannot believe you weren't drafted. You're hands down better than Cade. Better than Cade. He told me this over in NFL Europe. And here Cade is, first-round draft pick, millionaire.
Yeah.
And here's me. So, moral of the story, guys, I sat there from first round, second round, third round, fourth round, Here's like the dream. This was
Your
what I
whole life.
worked so hard for, to be drafted by an NFL team, and I wasn't.
So what happens at the end of that night? Like, what's Dad say? What's Dad say? I got to know what Marsh says at the end of this night.
Well, good news is, I mean, he just said, what can he say? He comforted me. He's like, hey, listen, that doesn't mean anything. There's been a lot of free agent guys that have done really well, but this isn't the end. You're going to be just fine. And let's call your agent and see what he's got going on. Well, we talked to my agent that night, and 3 teams had already called him that wanted to sign me.
Thanks for letting me know, jerk. Like, you sitting there watching it. You should have called you while the calls were coming in, right? Like, you should have called you as it was happening.
Well, it still wasn't. I mean, it was signed as a free agent. Mm-hmm. What that means, guys, is in the NFL in the draft, when you're drafted, you're going to get a lot more money, signing bonus and everything else. Mm-hmm. And NFL teams value draft picks, right? If you're drafted, you're most likely going to stay on that team for a few years. As a free agent, when you sign a free agent contract, I think I got to recall. So I signed right after the draft with the Carolina Panthers, and I think I signed for $50,000.
What?
$50K.
No way.
Yeah.
Holy moly! I had no idea. $50,000.
Yep.
To play to be a second or third string quarterback in the NFL.
Well, that was the signing bonus I got.
Okay.
In the NFL, there's no contracts guaranteed, right? What's guaranteed is the signing bonus that you get.
Right.
Right? When you sign it, you're going to get that signing bonus. That's why if you have a first-round draft pick, they give $10 million in a signing bonus. Do you think they're going to cut that guy?
Right.
No, they just gave this guy $10 million. They want to get everything they can out of him.
Right.
So as a free agent, like I said, you're walking on eggshells, and you don't want the ball to hit the ground. Like, as a free agent, you have to work that much harder. You're the underdog. I've always been the underdog in my life in sports, and I get this mentality from my dad. He's been he grew up without a father, so it all, you tie everything together. That underdog, I will always be a fighter. I always have that grit, and I will never give up. And you guys out, that are listening, in life, you just can't give up.
Yeah.
At whatever you're doing.
Any regrets as far as not playing baseball, Matt? Any?
So I was cut by the Ravens in 2003. I was 28 years old. My agent was Al Leiter's agent at the time. Al Leiter was a left-handed pitcher for the Mets, believe it or not. And at the time, he was a pitcher for the Florida Marlins. Al was throwing maybe 84 miles an hour, but he had wicked curveball and whatnot. So I talked to my dad and talked to my agent. I'm like, you know what? Let's give it a shot, right? I was drafted by the Mets in 1994. Mm-hmm. So here we are, fast forward in 2003. Hadn't thrown a baseball since.
What monetarily came with being drafted by the Mets? $1 million?
Nothing.
No guarantee.
I didn't sign with the Mets, so I didn't get any money.
Okay.
They drafted me. They took a chance on me and drafted me. But
there was no discussion or guarantee of, if you come on board, here's the money. Because baseball is big money. Baseball is much bigger money.
First round in Major League Baseball is big money. First round.
Yeah.
But as soon as it's funny. Like, I was going back to the story with the guns behind the plate, right?
Yeah.
Junior year, I had 20+ scouts behind every time I was throwing. My senior year, after I committed to Pitt to play football, maybe 5 scouts. Why do you think that was?
No more baseball.
They're like, he wants to play football. He signed with Pitt. And I really hadn't made a decision whether I'm going to play football or baseball. I just signed a letter of intent for a scholarship to Pitt. I still had my whole senior season of baseball to play. And then the draft is in June, I think, for Major League.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough. I got drafted by the Mets, and they tried to say, hey, we're going to sign you. We're going to send you, we'll give you, I don't know, it might have been $100,000. We're going to let you go to Pitt, play football, but come spring, you're going to go to spring training. But what would end up happening, I would have been a walk-on at Pitt, and it's like Johnny Majors, Matt, do you want to be the starting quarterback here at Pitt? It's decisions.
So you had a lot of interesting decisions to make in your life for your financial career and for your setting up for a family. Those are things that I don't remember. And I think that's more pressure. Now, answer the question, yes or no. You can't say anything else but yes or no, bro. Do you regret not playing baseball?
Yes. Yes. And
now you get to say why.
As I was saying with a story about the Florida Marlins and the Mets and Al Lytle, I started throwing. So after I was cut by the Ravens, that was August. Started personal training, staying in shape, and doing all that. I was at the Body Zone at the time, and I was staying in shape, throwing. I had some high school guys I was working out with, I wasn't getting any calls, and I kind of knew right then when I drove home. When I drove home from Baltimore, I was crying. I knew my dream was over when I got cut in that August. And here's the kicker, guys, and here's one of the things I will never forget, and I tell this story, and it gives me goosebumps and chills, and I know it was a sign from the Lord. I'm driving home, and I get this Baltimore number calling me. I'm like, Baltimore. I'm like, what did I do, forget something in my locker? That's what I'm thinking to myself. Did I forget something in my locker? I pick up the phone, and it's Ed Reed, safety for the Baltimore Ravens, the Hall of Famer, Ed Reed.
Yeah.
Ed played for Miami, and he basically said, Matt, you balled out. Don't give up on your dreams. You were balling. You didn't get your chance. Whatever you do, don't give up. Don't give up. And it was just, I didn't give Ed my cell phone. I knew Ed, and we talked smack across the line of scrimmage, and I played against him in college. He was at Miami. I was at Pitt. Great guy. Ed would give you the shirt off his back. I mean, I have so much respect for Ed.
He'd also wreck you, too.
Yeah.
Like Ed Reed was a bad dude.
Oh.
Like, the baddest dude back there.
I honestly think he was the best safety to play in the NFL.
I agree.
So driving home, and that was kind of the experience, and crying, and he tells me that. It was kind of like closure, right? The Lord saying, Matt, you did everything you can. You put all the work in, but it's just not going to happen. So that's when I came home, started working out, thought there was a glimpse. He said, don't give up, working out. Never got any calls from the NFL. So that chapter closed, and I said, I want to give baseball a try. So I started throwing, long tossing and whatnot, in Body Zone in January. Start long tossing, 3 days a week, and then start throwing it. Didn't clock myself or anything like that, but my agent at the time, like I said, Al Lytle, same agent, he's like, well, Al's down. He's getting ready for spring training. He's down in Jupiter, Florida. Well, the Marlins and the Mets were both getting ready for spring training in Jupiter, Florida. So I was like, or my